Later that night, after the gala ended and Vincent drove us home, Dante walked me to my door. Tommy was out with friends, the house empty. I unlocked it but didn't go inside, turning to face Dante in the doorway. "Thank you for tonight," I said. "For including me in your world. Thank you for being brave enough to enter it." He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. The gesture had become familiar, intimate. "I know this isn't what you planned for your life, Rosie. Plans change. Do you regret it? Saying yes?" I thought about it honestly. 3 months ago I was invisible, drowning, watching my brother slowly get worse because I couldn't afford to save him. Now Tommy was healthy, I was challenged by work that actually mattered, and I stood in the doorway of a beautiful house I could call home. "No," I said. "I don't regret it." "Good." His thumb brushed across my lower lip, and heat flooded through me. "Because I'm going to be selfish now, Rosie. I'm going to ask for more than just your work." My heart hammered. "What are you asking for?" "Everything." His voice was rough, honest in a way I'd never heard from him. "I want you in my life not just as my assistant but as my partner. In all ways. I want you to be mine completely, and I want to be yours in return." "I don't understand." "I'm already here. Already yours." "No," he said. "You're here because you felt you had no choice. Because I gave you an offer you couldn't refuse. I want you to choose me. Not because of what I can give you or protect you from, but because you want to." His vulnerability surprised me. This powerful man who commanded fear and respect from everyone was asking me, Rosie Bennett, formerly invisible waitress, to choose him. Not as an employer or a protector, but as something more. "I'm scared," I admitted. "Of you, of this world, of how much power you have over my life." "I know. And that's what makes you perfect. You see the danger and you're honest about your fear. But you're still here, still standing in this doorway looking at me like I might be worth the risk. Are you?" He smiled, sad and hopeful at once. "I'll spend every day proving I am." "Then yes," I said, making the choice he asked for. "Not because I have to, but because I want to. Yes, I choose you." He kissed me then, and it felt like sealing a promise. Not just between us, but with the world we were building together. A world where the invisible waitress became visible, where the crime lord found someone who saw his humanity, where two broken people found something like healing in the most unexpected place. When we finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine. "Welcome home, Rosie." And for the first time since my parents died, I understood what home really meant. Not a place, but a person. Not safety from danger, but someone willing to face danger with you. Dante Moretti was complicated, powerful, and dangerous. But he was also mine, and I was his, and somehow that was enough. Tommy came home an hour later to find me on the couch, grinning like an idiot. "You okay?" he asked, concern immediately crossing his face. "Yeah," I said, pulling him into a hug. "I'm more than okay. I think we're going to be fine, Tommy. Really, truly fine." He hugged me back, and I felt the last piece of weight I'd been carrying since our parents died finally lift. This wasn't the life I'd planned. It was better, more complicated, infinitely more dangerous. But it was ours, earned through honesty and choice and the courage to walk through gates that should have stayed closed. "I can choose my own clothes," I said, a little defensive. "I know you can. But you're representing me now, Rosie. That comes with certain expectations." His expression softened slightly. "Indulge me. Let me give you this." I realized then that this was what our relationship would be. A constant negotiation between his need to control and my need for independence. Between his protection and my freedom. I'd have to learn which battles to fight and which to concede. "Fine," I said. But I'm drawing the line at jewelry. I'm not wearing anything that costs more than a car. He smiled, genuine and warm. Deal. The weeks that followed established a rhythm. Days at the office managing Dante's schedule and correspondence. Evenings sometimes at the office late, sometimes at business dinners where I learned to smile and make small talk with people who ranged from perfectly respectable to obviously corrupt. I met judges and police commissioners, politicians and businessmen, all of them connected to Dante in ways I tried not to examine too closely. Tommy thrived in the new environment. His health stabilized with proper medical care. He made friends at college, started talking about graduate school. Watching him become the person he was meant to be made every compromise worth it. But things with Dante grew more complicated. The professional boundaries we'd maintained began to blur. His hand would rest on my lower back longer than necessary. His goodnight texts became more personal. The way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention held something that felt dangerous and thrilling in equal measure. The night of the gala arrived, and I spent hours getting ready in a dress that probably cost more than a semester of college. Deep blue silk that hugged my body in ways that made me self-conscious and powerful simultaneously. The stylist Dante had sent did my hair and makeup, transforming me from invisible waitress into someone who looked like they belonged in his world. When Vincent picked me up, even he seemed impressed. "You look beautiful, Miss Bennett." "Thanks, Vincent. And you can call me Rosie." He smiled slightly. "Mr. Moretti wouldn't like that. You're Miss Bennett when we're working." Another reminder that I'd stepped into a world with rigid rules I was still learning. Vincent drove me to the venue, a historic hotel downtown that had been transformed into something out of a fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers, ice sculptures, women in designer gowns and men in tuxedos. I'd never felt more out of place or more determined to fake it until I made it. Dante was waiting in the lobby, and the sight of him stopped my breath. He wore a black tuxedo that fit him perfectly, his dark hair styled back, looking every inch the powerful man he was. But what struck me was his expression when he saw me. Raw appreciation mixed with something possessive and hungry. "You're stunning," he said, taking my hand and bringing it to his lips. The gesture was old-fashioned, courtly, and completely disarming. "You clean up pretty well yourself." He smiled and offered his arm. "Ready to meet my world?" "As ready as I'll ever be." The evening passed in a blur of introductions and careful conversations. I met more people than I could possibly remember, all of them assessing me, trying to understand my relationship with Dante. His arm never left my waist, a constant claim that said mine more clearly than words. Midway through the night, a woman approached us. She was beautiful in that cultivated way wealthy women often are, with perfect hair and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Dante, darling," she said, kissing his cheek. "Who's your lovely companion?" "Rosie Bennett," Dante introduced me. "Rosie, this is Catherine Russo. Her family and mine have business together." The name Russo made my stomach tighten. Dante had mentioned them before, competitors who walked the line between cooperation and conflict. Catherine's smile was friendly, but her eyes were cold as they assessed me. "How did you and Dante meet?" she asked, her tone light but probing. "I worked at Giovanni's," I said, deciding honesty was better than evasion. "He left his wallet, and I returned it." "How honest of you." Catherine's smile sharpened. "Most people in our world aren't used to honesty. It's refreshing." She looked at Dante. "You've always had interesting taste." After she walked away, I turned to Dante. "Was that a threat?" "An assessment." His hand tightened on my waist. "Catherine likes to know who the players are. Now she knows you're not just a passing interest." "What am I, then?" His eyes met mine, dark and intense. "You're mine. And in my world, that means everything." The possessiveness should have scared me. Instead, it felt like an anchor in a sea of uncertainty. I'd spent so long being invisible, being nobody, that being claimed by someone like Dante felt almost intoxicating. The new beginning. The transition happened faster than I expected. Within a week, Tommy and I were moving into the brownstone, our few belongings looking lost in the spacious rooms. Dante had been true to his word. The house was ours, deed and all, though I suspected his lawyers had structured it in ways that kept me legally tied to him. I didn't ask for details. Some things were better left unexamined. Tommy's reaction to everything had been complicated. When I first told him about the job, he'd been skeptical, worried, protective in the way he'd learned to be since our parents died. But when the first visit to his new doctor resulted in a comprehensive treatment plan and prescriptions filled without us having to check our bank account first, I watched something ease in his shoulders. The constant tension he'd carried for years finally releasing. "You sure about this?" he asked on our first night in the new house. We sat on the back porch, watching the sun set over the small garden. "This guy, your boss, he's not going to hurt you, right?" "I don't think so," I said honestly. "He's complicated, Tommy. But I don't think he wants to hurt me." "You sound like you're trying to convince yourself." Maybe I was. The truth was, I still didn't fully understand what Dante Moretti wanted from me. Yes, I was his assistant, managing his schedule and handling correspondence like he'd promised. But there were moments, looks that lasted too long, casual touches that felt deliberate, when I sensed there was more to this arrangement than business. My first official day working from Dante's office was surreal. The building was downtown, all steel and glass, home to several of his legitimate businesses. Import-export companies, real estate holdings, investment firms. On paper, Dante Moretti was a successful businessman. The other stuff, the criminal empire, operated from shadows I wasn't yet allowed to see. His office occupied the entire top floor. The space was modern and minimalist, all clean lines and expensive furniture. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the entire city, a kingdom he controlled from behind a desk. "Your workspace," he said, gesturing to a smaller office adjacent to his. Glass walls separated us, creating the illusion of privacy while ensuring we were never really apart. "Everything you need is set up. Passwords are in the top drawer." I spent the morning learning the systems, going through files, understanding the scope of what I'd be managing. Dante had multiple businesses, dozens of employees, hundreds of appointments and obligations. Keeping track of it all was going to be genuinely challenging, which surprised me. I'd expected this to be a cover story, but the work was real. Around noon, Dante appeared in my doorway. "Lunch. Come with me." It wasn't a request, but his tone was gentler than it had been. We took his private elevator down to the parking garage where Vincent waited with the car. I'd learned that Vincent was more than a driver. He was Dante's right hand, the person who handled things that couldn't be handled officially. He was also unfailingly polite to me, which I appreciated. The restaurant was small and Italian, tucked into a neighborhood that reminded me painfully of where I'd worked at Giovanni's. We were seated immediately at the best table, other diners glancing at us curiously. I wondered how many of them knew who Dante was. How many were afraid? Over lunch, Dante talked business. A shipment coming in next week that needed customs paperwork expedited. A meeting with city officials about a development project. A charity gala he was hosting next month. Normal things, almost boring in their mundanity. But then he said, "I need you to attend the gala with me." I looked up from my pasta. "As your assistant?" "As my companion." He met my eyes steadily. "People need to see you with me. Need to understand that you're under my protection." "Protection from what?" "From people who might think you're a weakness they can exploit." His jaw tightened. "Once you're known to be mine, most will leave you alone. Those who don't will learn to regret it." The possessiveness in his tone should have bothered me more than it did. Instead, I felt something almost like security. In Dante's world, being claimed was being protected. It was a cage, yes, but also a shield. I don't have anything to wear to a gala. Already handled. He said it casually, like buying me formal wear was nothing. There's a boutique on Fifth Avenue. They're expecting you tomorrow at 2. Choose whatever you want. He led me out of the park and down several blocks to a neighborhood I'd never been in before. The buildings here were nicer, the streets cleaner. We stopped in front of a modest brownstone with a small garden in front. For sale, read the sign in the window. This could be yours, Dante said quietly. You and Tommy. 3 bedrooms, updated kitchen, a real yard. Close enough to his college that he could walk. Near a hospital with an excellent endocrinology department. I stared at the house, my throat tight. Why are you showing me this? Because I want you to understand what I'm really offering. This isn't just about money or a job. It's about giving you and your brother the life you deserve. The life you've been fighting for since you were 20 when your parents died. How do you know when they died? I whispered. I told you. I know everything about you. He turned to face me. I know you dropped out of college 3 credits from graduating to take care of Tommy. I know you work doubles even when you're sick. I know you sell your plasma and skip meals so he can eat. I know you're the strongest person I've ever met, and that strength is being wasted on survival when it could be used for so much more. Tears spilled over despite my best efforts. This isn't fair. No, it's not. His hand came up to wipe away my tears with his thumb. Nothing about life is fair. But I'm offering you a chance to change that. Not just for you, for Tommy too. He could get proper medical care. Finish his degree. Have a future that isn't defined by how many hours you can work in a week. We stood there on the sidewalk, his hand still on my face, and I felt the last of my resistance crumbling. He'd found my weakness and exploited it perfectly. Not my own needs, but my love for my brother. What do you want from me? I asked. Really? Because personal assistants don't get houses and $10,000 salaries. I want loyalty. Your word that once you're mine, you stay mine. No betrayals, no second guessing, no running to the police when things get complicated. You'll see parts of my world that can't be unseen. You'll know things that make you dangerous to both my enemies and the law. In exchange, I'll give you everything I showed you. Security. Safety. A life. And if I want out someday? His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Then we'll discuss it. But understand, Rosie, there are things you can't unlearn. People you can't unknown. Leaving my world is never simple. So I'd be trapped. You'd be protected. There's a difference. We stared at each other, and I saw something flicker in those dark eyes. Not just calculation or manipulation, but something almost human. Loneliness, maybe, or hope. I'll do it, I heard myself say. I'll work for you. But I have conditions. Name them. Tommy never gets involved in your other business. Whatever you do that's illegal, he stays completely separate from it. And if something happens to me, he gets taken care of. Education, medical care, everything. Dante nodded slowly. Agreed. Anything else? I get Sundays off. Completely off. No calls, no emergencies unless someone's actually dying. A smile tugged at his mouth. Agreed. And I want that house. Not as a gift, as part of my compensation. I'll work for it, earn it properly. His smile widened. You drive a hard bargain, Miss Bennett. Take it or leave it. He extended his hand for a formal shake. Deal. His grip was firm, warm, and as our hands clasped, I felt the weight of what I'd just agreed to. I'd sold my freedom for security, my independence for my brother's life. In 3 days, I'd gone from invisible waitress to property of a crime lord. But as Dante pulled me closer, his other hand coming to rest on my waist in a gesture that felt possessive but also protective, I wondered if I'd really had a choice at all. Sometimes survival isn't about making the right decision. It's about making the only decision you can live with. "Welcome to my world, Rosie," he murmured against my hair. "I promise I'll make it worth your sacrifice." And despite everything, despite knowing I'd just bound myself to a dangerous man in a dangerous world, I believed him. True to Dante's word, an envelope was under my door when I got home. Inside was exactly $5,000 in cash and a burner phone. I sat on my threadbare couch and stared at both for a long time, Tommy snoring softly in our shared bedroom. 3 days to decide if I would sell my soul for security. 3 days to choose between principle and survival. As I finally crawled into bed beside my brother, careful not to wake him, I already knew what my answer would be. I'd known it the moment I saw that salary offer. When you're drowning, you don't question the hand that pulls you up. You just hold on tight and pray it doesn't drag you under instead. The 3 days Dante gave me felt like 3 years. I went through the motions at work, smiling at customers and delivering orders while my mind spun in endless circles. The money under my door sat in a shoebox under my bed, untouched except for when I counted it late at night, making sure it was real. $5,000. More money than I'd ever seen at once. Tommy noticed something was wrong on the second day. We were eating dinner, cheap pasta again with sauce from a jar, when he set down his fork and looked at me with those 2 old eyes. "Whatever it is, just tell me," he said quietly. "You've been weird since Friday." "I'm fine," I lied, pushing food around my plate. "Just tired." "Rosie." His voice carried the weight of someone who'd been through too much too young. "We don't lie to each other. That's our rule." He was right. After our parents died, we'd made a pact. Honesty, always, no matter what. But how could I explain this? How could I tell my 19-year-old brother that I was considering working for a crime lord because we were out of options? "Someone offered me a different job," I finally said. "It pays really well. Better than anything I could get normally." Tommy's eyes lit up briefly before caution crept in. "What kind of job?" "Personal assistant. Managing schedules, handling correspondence, that kind of thing." "And the catch?" I met his gaze. "The person I'd be working for has a complicated reputation. It's not exactly dangerous, but it's not exactly safe either." Understanding dawned on his face. "This is about the money, isn't it? About my medical bills. It's about both of us having a chance at a real life." He was quiet for a long moment, then reached across the table to take my hand. "I don't want you doing something that compromises who you are just for me. I'll figure out my insulin situation. Maybe I can get into a clinical trial or something. Tommy, you need that insulin to live. This isn't negotiable anymore. Neither is your safety." His grip tightened. "Whatever this job is, whoever offered it, if your instinct says it's wrong, listen to it. We'll survive like we always have." But I was tired of just surviving. Tired of watching my brilliant little brother ration his medical supplies because we couldn't afford proper care. Tired of working myself into exhaustion and still falling behind. Dante Moretti was offering us a way out, and maybe the price of my conscience was worth Tommy's life. That night, I took out the burner phone and stared at it for an hour before finally pressing the only number saved in the contacts. It rang once. "Miss Bennett." Dante's voice was smooth, unsurprised. "Have you made your decision? I want to see where I'd be working. If I agree, I need to understand what I'm walking into." There was a pause, then a low chuckle. "Fair enough. Tomorrow at 10. Vincent will pick you up from your apartment. I'll take the bus to a public location. I'm not that comfortable yet." Another pause, longer this time. Washington Square Park. The fountain. 10 o'clock. He hung up before I could respond. I sat holding the phone, wondering if I'd just made the best or worst decision of my life. Washington Square Park was busy on a Saturday morning. Joggers circled the paths, students sat on benches with books, street musicians played for spare change. I arrived 15 minutes early and waited by the fountain, trying to calm my racing heart. At exactly 10, Dante appeared. He wore jeans and a simple black jacket, no guards visible though I suspected they were nearby. He looked different in casual clothes, younger somehow, less intimidating. Almost normal, if you ignored the way people instinctively gave him space as he walked. He sat beside me on the fountain's edge, not too close but near enough that I could feel the heat of his body against the cool morning air. "Thank you for meeting me. You said I'd see where I'd work. We'll get there. First, I want to show you something else." He stood and offered his hand. "Trust me for an hour. Just 1 hour." I looked at his outstretched hand, calloused and scarred, knowing that taking it meant crossing a line I couldn't uncross. But I took it anyway, and his fingers closed around mine with surprising gentleness. The way he said it made clear there were illegal things, just that I wouldn't be touching them directly. "But you do illegal things," I said bluntly. "Everyone knows what the Moretti family really does." Instead of anger, approval crossed his face. "See? Honest. That's exactly what I need." He opened the folder and pulled out a paper, sliding it across to me. "This is what I'm offering. Salary, benefits, housing allowance." The number on the paper made my vision blur. $10,000 a month. Full medical coverage for me and Tommy, which would mean his insulin and doctor visits would finally be covered. A housing allowance that was triple what I currently paid in rent. It was more money than I'd ever imagined earning, more than I could make in years at my current jobs. "Why so much?" I asked suspiciously. "For an assistant?" "Because you'd be more than an assistant. You'd be someone I could depend on absolutely. In my world, that kind of loyalty is priceless." He watched me carefully. "Your brother would get the care he needs. You could finish your degree if you wanted. You could stop drowning and start living." The offer was everything I needed. Everything Tommy needed. And that's exactly why every instinct told me it was dangerous. Men like Dante Moretti didn't give gifts without expecting something in return. "What's the catch?" I asked. His smile was slight, appreciative. "The catch is that once you're in my world, leaving becomes complicated. You'll see things, know things that make you a liability if you walk away. You'll be protected, but you'll also be watched. Your freedom will have limits. So I'd be a prisoner. You'd be valued. There's a difference." He stood again, moving to the window that overlooked the gardens. "I'm not asking you to decide tonight. Think about it. Take a few days." I looked down at the paper again, at the number that could save Tommy's life and give us both a future. But I also thought about what Dante was really offering. A golden cage, no matter how beautiful the bars might be. "Can I ask you something?" I said. He turned from the window. "Anything." "Why me?" "Really. You could hire anyone. Someone educated, experienced, someone from your world who already understands how it works." He walked back to me, and this time when he reached out, his hand cupped my chin, tilting my face up to his. "Because everyone from my world is corrupted by it. They know how to lie, how to scheme, how to betray while smiling to your face. But you, Rosie Bennett, you walked through my gate at night, alone, to return something that wasn't yours because it was the right thing to do. You can't fake that kind of character." His thumb brushed across my lower lip, and heat flooded through me despite every reason I should be terrified. "You're right to be cautious," he murmured. "You're right to see the danger. But I'm also offering you salvation. Not just money, but safety. Protection. A life where you don't have to choose between food and your brother's medicine. He released me and stepped back. 3 days. That's how long you have to decide. Vincent will give you a phone as you leave. It has one number programmed into it. Mine. Call when you've made your choice. I stood on shaking legs. And if I say no? Then you go back to your life, and we never speak of this again. No consequences, no retaliation. I'm not a monster, Rosie, despite what you might have heard. But we both knew that wasn't entirely true. Men didn't reach Dante Moretti's position by being kind. The scars on his forearms, the way his guards moved with military precision, the fear I'd seen in Carlo's eyes, all of it told a different story. "Thank you for returning my wallet," he said, his tone formal now, dismissive. "Vincent will see you out." As I turned to leave, his voice stopped me at the door. "Rosie? One more thing." I looked back at him. "That money you saw in the wallet? There was $5,000. By tomorrow morning, it will be in your apartment. Under your door. Consider it a thank you for your honesty tonight." "I can't accept that." "You can and you will." His eyes hardened slightly. "Your brother's insulin costs $800 out of pocket. Your rent is 2 months overdue. Don't let pride kill you both." The truth of his words hit like a physical blow. He was right. God help me, he was right. I nodded once and left, following Vincent back through the house and out into the night that felt colder than before. It wasn't really a request, so I moved to one of the leather chairs facing his desk and perched on its edge. The guard had placed the wallet on the desk between us. Moretti picked it up, weighed it in his hand, then set it aside without opening it. "You returned something that didn't belong to you," he said. His voice was quiet, almost gentle, but something in it made my skin prickle with awareness. "That's unusual." It was the right thing to do, I managed, my throat dry. "The right thing." He leaned back in his chair, studying me with an intensity that made me want to squirm. "Do you know who I am, Rosie?" The use of my first name sent another chill through me. "Yes. And yet you came here anyway. Alone. At night. To return something most people would have considered compensation for my carelessness." His head tilted slightly. "Why?" "Because it wasn't mine to keep." My hands twisted in my lap. No matter how much I might have needed it. Something flickered in those cold eyes. Interest, maybe, or calculation. "How much do you need it?" The question caught me off guard. "What?" "Money." "How badly do you need money, Rosie Bennett?" I didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Because the honest response was desperately, more than anything, and I had no idea what he would do with that information. He stood, moving around the desk with the kind of fluid grace that made me think of predators. He stopped in front of me, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. "I'm going to tell you something," he said quietly. "That wallet was left deliberately. A test, if you will. 4 other people handled that table before you reached it. Every single one of them took the money and left the empty wallet for someone else to find." My stomach dropped. "You were testing us?" "Testing you specifically." His hand reached out, and I flinched slightly before his fingers gently tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. The touch was surprisingly gentle. "I've been watching you for 3 months, Rosie. Every Friday night when I come to Giovanni's. You've never once looked at me the way other people do. You treat me like just another customer. Do you have any idea how rare that is?" I couldn't speak, couldn't process what he was telling me. He'd been testing me. Watching me. 4 months. "You passed," he continued. "You're honest in a world where honesty is almost extinct. You have integrity even when it costs you. That makes you valuable. That makes you interesting. I don't understand, I whispered. He smiled then, and it transformed his face from merely handsome to absolutely devastating. You will. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone, and despite every warning instinct screaming in my head, I didn't pull away. I have a proposition for you, Rosie Bennett. One that could change everything, the offer. The study felt smaller suddenly, the air thicker. Dante Moretti stood close enough that I could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle that mixed with the faint scent of leather from the furniture. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of what he had just revealed. 3 months of watching me. A deliberate test. What kind of man did that? What kind of proposition? I asked, proud that my voice only shook slightly. He stepped back, giving me space to breathe, and returned to his desk. He opened a drawer and pulled out a folder, setting it on the polished wood between us. Inside that folder is everything about you, Rosie. Your work history, your brother's medical records, your financial situation. The apartment you can barely afford, the student loans you defaulted on, the medical debt that's crushing you. Anger cut through my fear. You investigated me? Of course I did. His tone was matter-of-fact, as if stalking people was perfectly normal. I don't make offers to people I know nothing about. He gestured to the folder. You work 70 hours a week between 2 jobs. You haven't bought yourself new clothes in over a year. Last month you gave blood twice just to get the compensation money for your brother's insulin. You're drowning, Rosie. And you're too proud to ask for help. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. What do you want from me? I want you to work for me. He leaned forward, his elbows on the desk. I need someone I can trust. Someone who won't be bought by my enemies or compromised by greed. Someone who sees a wallet full of money and thinks about returning it instead of keeping it. I already have 2 jobs. You'd quit both. This would be your only employment. I need a personal assistant. Someone to manage certain aspects of my life that require discretion and absolute loyalty. My heart hammered. What aspects? Legitimate business affairs, he said, and I noticed he emphasized the word legitimate. Scheduling meetings, handling correspondence, coordinating with my lawyers and accountants. You wouldn't be involved in anything illegal. But even as the thought formed, shame washed over me hot and immediate. I wasn't a thief. I had never been a thief, even when Tommy and I had gone days eating nothing but rice and whatever free bread I could bring home from the restaurant. Some lines you didn't cross, no matter how hungry you were or how desperate things got. I closed the wallet and looked around. Carlo was still occupied. The other waiters were busy with their sections. Through the front windows, I could see the tail lights of Moretti's car disappearing down the street. He was already gone. The smart thing would have been to give the wallet to Carlo, let him handle it, collect my thank you and whatever reward might come. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the way Carlo's eyes had gleamed when he saw Moretti earlier. Maybe it was the whispered conversations I'd overheard over the years about staff skimming tips and pocketing forgotten items. Or maybe it was something deeper, some instinct I couldn't name. I tucked the wallet into my apron pocket. When my shift ended 20 minutes later, I changed out of my uniform in the cramped staff bathroom and stepped into the cool October night. My bus stop was 3 blocks away, but I didn't head toward it. Instead, I walked in the opposite direction, toward the part of the neighborhood where the houses got bigger and the streets got quieter. Everyone knew where the Moretti family lived. The house stood on Riverside Avenue, a 3-story brownstone that had been in the family for generations. High iron gates, security cameras visible at every corner, and the kind of maintained perfection that spoke of serious money. As I approached, my courage nearly failed me. This was insane. I should have just given the wallet to Carlo. But I kept walking until I stood before the intercom mounted beside the gate. A camera lens stared down at me like an unblinking eye. I pressed the button with a trembling finger. The speaker crackled to life immediately. No voice, just the sound of an open connection. Someone was listening. "I found something that belongs to someone here," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "A wallet. It was left at Giovanni's restaurant." The silence stretched so long I thought maybe no one was going to respond. Then the gate began to swing open with a low mechanical hum. No instructions, no questions, just an opening that felt like an invitation I couldn't refuse. The walkway to the front door seemed endless. My footsteps echoed too loud on the stone path. Gardens stretched on either side, perfectly maintained even this late in the season. Lights blazed from the house windows, warm and inviting in a way that felt at odds with what I knew about the people inside. The front door opened before I reached it. A man stood there, one of the security guards who had been with Moretti at the restaurant. Up close, he looked even more intimidating. Broad shoulders, scarred knuckles, and eyes that assessed me with professional efficiency. "You have something for us," he said. Not a question. I pulled the wallet from my jacket pocket and held it out. It was left at the restaurant. I wanted to make sure it got back to its owner. The guard took it, opened it briefly to verify the contents, then looked back at me with something that might have been surprise. "You could have kept this. Nobody would have known." "I would have known," I replied simply. He studied me for a long moment, then stepped aside. "Come in. He's waiting for you." My heart lurched. Waiting for me? How could Moretti be waiting when I'd made the decision to come here on my own? But I followed the guard inside, into a foyer that spoke of old money and older power. Marble floors, crystal chandelier, artwork on the walls that looked like it belonged in a museum. The guard led me down a hallway and stopped at a set of double doors. He knocked once, then opened them without waiting for a response. Inside was a study that felt more like a sanctuary. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a massive desk, leather furniture that had been worn soft with age and use. And sitting behind the desk, watching me with those penetrating dark eyes, was Dante Moretti. He had removed his jacket and tie. His white shirt was open at the collar, sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms marked with old scars. He looked more dangerous like this, without the civilized veneer of formal clothing. "Miss Bennett," he said, and my blood ran cold. He knew my name. How did he know my name? "Please, sit." The test. The dinner rush at Giovanni's was in full chaos when everything changed for me. Steam rose from the kitchen in thick clouds while the clatter of silverware and murmur of conversations blended into a familiar symphony. I moved between tables like a ghost, refilling water glasses and delivering orders with practiced efficiency. Nobody ever really looked at me. After 3 years of working here, I had perfected the art of being invisible. My name is Rosie Bennett, 27 years old, and I had long ago accepted that my life would be ordinary. Every morning I woke up in the cramped studio apartment I shared with my younger brother Tommy, who was fighting his way through community college while battling type 1 diabetes. Every evening I returned home exhausted, counting tips that never seemed quite enough to cover his insulin and our mounting bills. Dreams of finishing my own degree had faded years ago when our parents died in a car accident, leaving me as Tommy's only family. That October evening started like any other. The restaurant was packed with the usual crowd of businessmen, tourists, and neighborhood regulars. I was balancing 4 plates of pasta when the front doors swung open, and the entire atmosphere shifted. Conversations didn't exactly stop, but they lowered to hushed tones. Even the kitchen seemed to quiet for a moment. I glanced up and immediately understood why. The man who entered commanded attention without trying. He was probably in his mid-30s, tall and built like someone who understood violence intimately. Dark hair swept back from a face that was all sharp angles and controlled power. His suit probably cost more than I earned in 6 months. But it was his eyes that made my hands tremble slightly on the plates. They were cold, calculating, the kind of eyes that missed nothing and forgot even less. Behind him walked two men who were clearly security, their jackets bulging slightly at the sides in a way that made my mouth go dry. Everyone in Little Italy knew about the Moretti family. Knew and didn't talk about it. They controlled everything from the docks to the restaurants, from construction contracts to city council votes. And the man walking through Giovanni's right now was Dante Moretti, the current head of the family since his uncle's convenient retirement 2 years ago. Carlo, our head waiter, materialized instantly. His usual pompous demeanor replaced by something close to fear. He personally escorted Moretti to the best table in the house, a corner booth that offered privacy and a clear view of both entrances. I forced myself to focus on delivering my current order, trying to ignore how my heart hammered against my ribs. 2 hours passed. I served other tables, refilled breadbaskets, smiled at customers who barely acknowledged my existence. All while acutely aware of the dark-haired man in the corner who seemed to be watching the entire restaurant with those penetrating eyes. He ate alone, declined wine, and spoke occasionally into his phone in low tones that didn't carry. When he finally stood to leave, I was clearing a nearby table. Carlo rushed over to handle the payment personally, practically bowing as he thanked Moretti for his patronage. I kept my head down, focusing on stacking dirty plates with steady hands. The whole restaurant seemed to release a collective breath as the doors closed behind him and his guards. I finished clearing my table and moved toward booth 7 where Moretti had been sitting. My job was to clean and reset it quickly for the next customers. As I reached for his empty wine glass, something caught my eye. Tucked partially under the salt shaker was a wallet. Expensive black leather, sleek and obviously high-end. My first instinct was to call Carlo over. He was still near the front, talking animatedly to another waiter about the visit. But something made me hesitate. I picked up the wallet carefully, my fingers registering its weight. When I opened it, my breath caught. Inside were multiple credit cards bearing the name Dante Moretti, a driver's license, and a thick stack of $100 bills. I didn't count them, but there had to be thousands of dollars there. For one terrible, tempting moment, I stood frozen. This money could cover Tommy's insulin for months. Could pay off the medical debt that kept growing no matter how many extra shifts I worked. Could give us breathing room we hadn't had in years. Who would know? Who would even care? Men like Dante Moretti probably lost this much money between their couch cushions.